October 16, 1946. A man who once ruled over millions from a medieval castle walks toward the gallows at Nuremberg prison. Hans Frank, known throughout occupied Europe as the Butcher of Poland, is about to face justice for crimes so immense they helped create entirely new categories of international law. Tonight, we uncover how an ambitious lawyer became one of history's most notorious war criminals, and why his own son would later write a book calling for eternal revenge against him. Before we dive into this chilling chapter of history, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for Timeless World. We bring you the untold stories behind history's darkest moments, stories that remind us why we must never forget. Drop a comment below. Should the children of war criminals speak out against their parents? Now, let's begin. The making of a Nazi lawyer. Hans Michael Frank entered the world on May 23, 1900, in Karlsruhe, Germany, born into privilege as the son of a successful attorney. His comfortable childhood shattered when his mother abandoned the family for a lover when Hans was just 10 years old. This early trauma would shape a man desperately seeking belonging and power. When World War I erupted in 1914, 17-year-old Frank enlisted in the German army, though he never saw frontline combat. After Germany's humiliating defeat, Frank joined the Freikorps, violent paramilitary units that brutally suppressed communist uprisings during the chaotic German Revolution. These weren't peacekeepers, they were street fighters who believed Germany had been betrayed from within. In 1919, Frank discovered his calling when he joined the German Workers' Party, the organization that would soon transform into the Nazi Party. By 1923, he had become a member of the Sturmabteilung, Hitler's infamous brown-shirt stormtroopers. Frank participated in the failed beer hall putsch of 1923, when Hitler attempted to overthrow the German government. When the coup collapsed in gunfire that left 16 Nazis dead, Frank fled to Italy while Hitler went to prison. Hitler's personal lawyer. After earning his law doctorate, Frank positioned himself as the Nazi Party's chief legal defender. By 1929, Hitler appointed him head of the party's legal department, and Frank would represent the Nazis in over 2,400 cases. He wasn't just defending political activists, he was legitimizing extremism through the legal system. One professor who had taught Frank reportedly begged him, "Leave these people alone. Political movements that begin in the criminal courts will end in the criminal courts." This prophetic warning went unheeded. Frank's ambition blinded him to the monster he was helping create. When Hitler seized power in January 1933, Frank's loyalty was rewarded spectacularly. He became Bavaria's Minister of Justice, then a Reich Minister, and eventually head of the Academy for German Law, an institution designed to reshape German jurisprudence around Nazi ideology. Frank even served as a judge on the Supreme Party Court, settling internal Nazi disputes. His legal philosophy was chilling in its clarity. The judge's role is to safeguard the concrete order of the racial community, to eliminate dangerous elements. Justice itself had become a weapon. A kingdom built on corpses. September 1, 1939. Germany invaded Poland, unleashing World War II. Within weeks, Poland was crushed between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Hitler personally selected Hans Frank to rule the conquered Central Polish territories as Governor General. When Frank returned home after receiving this appointment, he reportedly knelt before his wife and declared, "Brigitte, you will become the Queen of Poland." He established his headquarters at Wawel Castle in Krakow, the ancient seat of Polish kings. What followed was not governance, but organized plunder and mass murder. Frank made his intentions immediately clear. Poland shall be treated like a colony, the Poles will become the slaves of the greater German world empire. This wasn't rhetorical excess, it was official policy. The 12 million people under his jurisdiction, including 1.5 million Jews, were about to experience systematic destruction. The architecture of terror. Frank instituted what can only be described as a reign of terror. Public executions became routine, groups of 20 to 200 Poles shot in the streets as mournings. When a Czech official announced 7 Czechs had been executed, Frank cynically remarked, "If I had to put up a poster for every 7 Poles shot, the forests of Poland would not be sufficient to manufacture the paper." The economic exploitation was equally devastating. Food produced in Poland was shipped to Germany on such massive scales that Polish rations fell to starvation levels. Disease spread like wildfire through malnourished populations. Frank wasn't governing, he was mining human resources. Until exhaustion and death. Over 1 million Poles were deported to Germany as slave laborers. Their property was confiscated, their culture systematically destroyed. All secondary education was abolished. Polish cultural institutions were closed. This wasn't occupation, it was the attempted erasure of an entire nation. The Holocaust in Poland. The horror Frank inflicted upon Poland's Jewish population represents one of history's darkest chapters. From the very beginning, Jewish property was confiscated and Jewish people were forced into hard labor. But these early measures were merely prologue to industrialized genocide. On October 16, 1940, Frank announced the creation of the Warsaw Ghetto, which would become the largest Jewish ghetto in Nazi-occupied Europe. Over 400,000 Jews were forced into just 1.3 square miles, with an average of 9 people per room. Running water was scarce, proper sanitation became impossible. The food rations tell the story: 184 calories per day for Jews compared to 2,613 for Germans. An official German order stated that provisions must be less than the minimum necessary for preserving life, regardless of the consequences. This was deliberate starvation as policy. Between 1940 and mid-1942, 83,000 Jews died from hunger and disease in Warsaw alone. On December 16, 1941, Frank addressed his senior officials with chilling directness about the impending annihilation. What should we do with the Jews? We were told in Berlin, so liquidate them yourselves. Gentlemen, I must ask you to rid yourself of all feelings of pity. We must annihilate the Jews wherever we find them. They did exactly that. Beginning in spring 1942, Jews were systematically deported from ghettos to extermination camps. By 1944, all ghettos in the general government had been liquidated. Frank oversaw 4 of the extermination camps directly. At least 3 million Jews were murdered under his jurisdiction. Living like royalty while millions starved. While millions died, Frank and his wife Brigitta lived in obscene luxury. They employed chauffeurs, servants, and cooks. Frank decorated Wawel Castle with Leonardo da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine, one of only 3 Da Vinci oil paintings in the world. He plundered art treasures from churches and noble estates throughout Poland. His weekend residence was furnished with stolen property from Polish aristocratic palaces. Frank, who fancied himself cultured, played piano and attended operas. The German composer Richard Strauss even wrote a hymn in his honor. Brigitta Frank drove to the ghettos of Krakow and Warsaw in her chauffeur-driven Mercedes-Benz to procure jewelry and furs from desperate, doomed Jews. She openly called herself Queen of Poland. The Frank family's weekend home was located near railway lines where trains packed with Jews heading to Auschwitz regularly passed. The beginning of the end. By 1942, Frank's relationship with SS Chief Heinrich Himmler had deteriorated into open conflict. Frank resented the SS operating independently within his territory. In a series of university lectures, he criticized the Nazi police state and called for an independent judiciary. Hitler was furious. Frank was banned from speaking outside the general government and stripped of his titles as Reich leader of the Nazi Party and president of the Academy of German Law. Yet he remained governor general. The power was too intoxicating to surrender. When Soviet forces approached in January 1945, Frank finally fled Krakow with 3 trucks filled with stolen art, works by Rembrandt, Raphael, and Da Vinci. He carried a fake passport under the name Fischer and had arranged passage to Argentina through Catholic Church connections. But Frank never left Germany. Incredibly, he believed he would never face serious consequences. He imagined at worst comfortable exile like Kaiser Wilhelm II after World War I. Capture and confession. On May 4, 1945, American troops captured Frank at Tegernsee in southern Bavaria. These same soldiers had liberated Dachau just 5 days earlier. They had seen the atrocities firsthand. Frank was forced to walk through a gauntlet of soldiers who beat him repeatedly. Faced with the reality of his situation, Frank twice attempted suicide. Both attempts failed. He later admitted, "I tried to commit suicide because I sacrificed everything for Hitler, and that man left us all alone." His son Nicholas would later say his father attempted suicide not from guilt, but from fear of being treated as he had treated others. Justice at last. The Nuremberg trials represented something unprecedented in human history, an international tribunal holding leaders accountable for crimes against humanity. For 216 court sessions, the world watched as the architects of Nazi terror finally faced judgment. Hans Frank was charged with conspiracy to commit crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The evidence against him was overwhelming, much of it from his own detailed diaries. During testimony, Frank claimed to feel terrible guilt. He and Albert Speer were the only defendants to show any remorse. Frank even converted to Roman Catholicism and claimed religious transformation. He stated, "I am possessed by a deep sense of guilt." But his defense contradicted his confession. He claimed he only ordered necessary pacification measures. He insisted he never knew about concentration camp activities. He blamed the SS for excesses beyond his control. According to his son Nicholas, Frank's parents knew everything about the extermination camps. The confession was theater, an attempt to save his life. On October 1, 1946, the International Military Tribunal delivered its verdict. guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Hans Frank was sentenced to death by hanging. The tribunal found he was a willing and knowing participant in the use of terrorism in Poland, in the economic exploitation of Poland in a way which led to death by starvation of a large number of people, in the deportation to Germany as slave laborers of over 1 million Poles, and in a program involving the murder of at least 3 million Jews. Frank's response: death by hanging. I deserved it, and I expected it. The final reckoning. In the early morning hours of October 16, 1946, 10 Nazi leaders were led one by one to the gallows in Nuremberg prison's gymnasium. Hans Frank was the 5th to mount the scaffold. Uniquely among the condemned, he smiled as he entered the execution chamber. His final words were, "I am thankful for the kind treatment during my captivity, and I ask God to accept me with mercy." The executions were carried out by U.S. Army Master Sergeant John C. Woods, who used the standard drop method rather than the long drop method that ensures quick death. The trapdoor was too small, causing some condemned men to suffer head injuries as they fell. Frank died at 2:08 a.m. His body was later cremated and his ashes scattered in the river Isar. There would be no grave, no memorial, no place for his supporters to gather. Hans Frank was 46 years old. A son's revenge. The story doesn't end with Frank's death. His widow Brigitte never expressed remorse for the Third Reich. She died in 1959. The Frank children dealt with their father's legacy in tragically different ways. In 1987, Frank's son Nicholas published The Father, A Settling of Accounts, a devastating book denouncing his father and questioning his deathbed remorse. Unlike other children of Nazi leaders who remained silent or defended their parents, Nicholas sought revenge through truth. The book shocked Germany. Nicholas didn't just expose his father, he expressed rage and hatred, wishing he could watch his father experience the gas chambers. One of his brothers accused him of lying. His sister Sigrid moved to South Africa, attracted to apartheid. His other sister Brigitte committed suicide at 46, the same age their father was executed, because she couldn't bear living longer than he had. Why Nuremberg still matters. The Nuremberg trials established a revolutionary principle. Even heads of state can be held criminally responsible for crimes against humanity. The trials created the foundation for modern international criminal law and ultimately led to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The United Nations unanimously affirmed both the charter and judgment of the International Military Tribunal. Nuremberg drew a clear distinction between acceptable conduct in war and aggressive warfare itself. It established that certain crimes are so heinous they concern all humanity, not just individual nations. Hans Frank's execution sent an unmistakable message. Atrocity has consequences. Power doesn't guarantee immunity, and history will remember. Hans Frank's story isn't just history. It's a warning. When lawyers twist justice into weapons, when leaders view human beings as expendable resources, when ordinary people enable extraordinary evil, the consequences echo across generations. If this documentary opened your eyes to a chapter of history you didn't know, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Timeless World and turn on notifications. We explore the stories that shaped our world and continue to shape our future. Share this video with someone who needs to understand why never forget means taking action today, not just remembering yesterday. What do you think? Can the children of war criminals ever escape their parents' shadows? Should they try? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And so does this community. Next time on Timeless World, we examine another architect of Nazi terror whose crimes remain lesser known, but equally devastating. This is history that demands we pay attention. Don't miss it. Thanks for watching Timeless World. Remember, those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. See you in the next episode.